What's going on, everybody? Non here. I'm gonna try to power through this. I've had low grade fever for the last couple days, and the Tylenol just wore off. But I think this is important to get out there. This is why Journey Together isn't going to tank the MSRP. And I see a lot of people panicking and a lot of Timmies out there saying it's going to go to MSRP or lower. And I want to go through the reasons why it's not going to. Now that doesn't mean it doesn't spike below for 3 seconds, but I don't see any scenario where that happens. So let's go through. So first of all, this is my handy dandy chart from the video I did yesterday and the one I do every couple weeks for all the SV products. So all the sets. So SV base is the worst performing next to Shrouded Fable. It's at 15% over MSRP. You have some low 20s, Paradox, Temporal. I think these are going to move relatively quickly. And then you have some bangers surging. Obviously Journey Together is at 57. In fact, I should probably take this back because it's 245 right now. So you're 52%. You're literally on par with Surging Sparks, obviously. So when you think of Journey Together, you really have to compare it to the price of the rest of the sets and what you're getting in the rest of the sets. And, the fact that it's readily available is one thing, but is it really that readily available? And I'll touch on that in a second. So first things first, the set's pretty damn good. And there's a ton of value in the singles. And I know the set doesn't release till tomorrow. But if we look at these, just the SIRs, Lily's Clefairy, 315. Cut it in half, it's a $157 card. Yeah, the end card, I can barely read it here. So it's really hard. Hobzation, 175. Salamence, 323. Iona's Belly Bolt, 134. So with the hit rates, and again, I'm presuming these are the same as Stella Crown. There's no reason to believe they changed it. So we'll see. But you're getting good value in these boxes. The hits are cards that people want. People love these cards. You can get the product. Now, it might cost you $6, $7 a pack, maybe $8 a pack. And my keyboard on my desktop is terrible. And the gold cards actually look amazing. The hyper rares for the first time, they look really badass. People have shit on gold cards forever, but they're really, really awesome. By the way, you should probably drink on that one. Yeah. Cheers to the guy in the comment section. That was pretty good. So the set has value. It is certainly among the best sets for hits as it sits right now. And I don't see a scenario where there aren't multiple cards over 60, 70, $100 in the set. And I mean, look, just look at Stella Crown. You had Terapagos, which is kind of but then you had the Bulbasaur and the Squirtle, which carried the set. And you could get them, which is why people keep ripping it. It's not a big set on the investor side, but people rip it because they like it and they get the cards they want. So let's go to the streamer. They're already selling packs at $9 plus. They're selling out on demand. $324 equivalent per box. So the rip and ship demand is there. These guys are going to buy packs all day long. The cheaper it goes, the more they're going to buy. And that's just kind of the way it is. It's common sense. So there's no lack of supply there. And quite honestly, the early product that these guys are ripping is a cheaper product that they got. They're going to have to go to the market and they're going to have to actively buy it. And, outside of sealed product here, the only other place that you're going to get packs are the Hobzation sets right now. I think there's another one that comes out in April, but that's 2 packs per box. You're not gonna get rich there. You might die trying. So moving on to the investors, the alternative investment options are slightly less cheap than Journey Together. Will be about a week after release. I mean, I think the set's probably gonna 235, 225 at some point, and then it's just gonna sit there and churn for a little bit, and then we'll move back up, and I'll show you why in a second. I think people are going to spec on the enhanced booster box not getting reprinted. That seems to be the number one question that everybody has. If the next reprint of this doesn't have the enhanced booster boxes, are they a collector's item? And the answer is obviously yes. But, is it worth specking on? If the price gets low enough, at $200, of course it is. I mean, you can buy SV base, Paradox, Temporal Forces, which I would probably buy before these, quite honestly, because they're closer to being rotated out. But it's all relative in the eye of the beholder. And most investors probably pre-ordered early, so a basis of MSRP or lower at their local store, super early on because they're just buying every single set, so they don't give a shit what the price goes to because they're in super low. Let's go to the Scalper. The Scalper, the store, are the two most important ones here. So with the Scalper, This is what really prevents the crash on the items. And this is why we saw Prismatic Evolutions dump and then just kind of sit there in purgatory, because on a product that had a $55 MSRP, when it opened at $140, $130, everybody who was scalping at MSRP was able to make money. That's not the case here. And I actually did a video on this a couple weeks ago. So the MSRP is $161. And I'm sure the total number of bots has multiplied exponentially. So we'll joke here. I'm sure Australian Lambo guy may not be eating as much as he was previously because there's just more competition out there. And then, the fees on TCG Player are 14%, and shipping per box is on average $12 between the cardboard, the materials, the packing, the shipping. I don't know if you ever tried to ship anything to Hawaii, but it's damn near $20 at this point. Southern California is probably $15. It's crazy. Including the cost of materials on average in the US. So let's look at the math real quick. So if the scalper bought at Walmart, fulfilled and shipped by Walmart, they paid $161. You gross it up for the TCG Player fee, it's $187. Shipping cost is $12. So they have to sell the box at $199 just to break even. Well, why would you do that? You want at least $20, $30, $40. So until you're north of $220, you're probably not churning the product unless you're a complete idiot who's not liquid and you just need to dump the product. Or, you're doing the same and you're doing it on Facebook to avoid fees. But that has no impact on the market the way we see it on TCG Player. There's a ton of off the books deals that, they are what they are. And then, if folks bought from GT Collectibles, they're actually in a worse position. So they paid $203, so $236 net of fees, $12 shipping cost, $248 is the break-even price. So just a little bit higher than where it's trading today. So scalpers aren't going to be able to push this product down past probably $220, $230. So there's really not a whole lot of scalp margin on here. Now, it may create an artificial floor on the product, somewhere in the $230 to $240 range for a little bit, but that's okay. I mean, that's a pretty healthy price if you're looking at the upside of the product. And then let's go to the stores. And this is in the world of the stores, the only way that these products are going to plummet is if there's a massive amount of supply given to immature groups that are going to race to zero just to make a couple bucks. We see it in Magic the Gathering all the time. Most LGSs are financially incompetent. They'll just throw it out there. They'll dump it as quickly as they can, churn the cash. Why bother? Get a job at Starbucks making $20 an hour. You'll do better and you'll be less stressed. But the store has the highest margin of any group here because generally speaking, they're probably paying on average $95. And I'm not talking about the big stores. I'm talking about, 2 cases, 3 cases, whatever. And they have plenty of room to cut prices and move the product if they had the product. So we know with the smaller stores, the allocations for the smaller, less financially strong stores have been slashed significantly. Many distributors who I've spoken to personally mentioned that they've increased the minimum spend to obtain allocation for Pokemon key products, which just happens to be every product now. For Journey Together, a lot of them bumped it again for the Super Premium Collection, and it's just going to get bumped yet another time for DR, for Destined Rivals. And whether that's right, wrong, or indifferent, it is what it is because you have the same pie and more mouths to feed. So back to the store. Most, if not all, the boxes are already spoken for. They've either been pre-sold at some price, MSRP or higher, or they've been pre-promised to a local who's going to rip the product, and they're probably paying a discounted price because they're a loyal local, which is really cool. So there isn't hundreds of thousands of boxes. This isn't a Vivid Voltage situation where the demand falls out of the market and all of a sudden you have all the supply going to irresponsible stores where they're just like, fucking dump it. It's not that way. So again, the items that are going to push the price down, the price increase is too high relative to other SV purchase options. And that just means that the investment or the relative value of other sets is better than Journey Together. And that's all in the eye of the beholder. And when all the prices are kind of bunched between $250, it's not super relevant. And then the one I just explained, LGSs begin to panic dump product, which is virtually impossible because they don't have it. All of the big stores who have the product, they're going to list it out there for market for the first 6-8 weeks, and then they're going to pull it off the market and watch the thing run. It happens like clockwork every single release, and they'll sit on it. And when the boxes go to $300 or $350, they'll list it again. And if you've paid any attention to this on TCG Player, that's exactly what happens. They'll allocate 40%, 60% of their supply. They'll dump that, recoup their basis, and they'll sit on the rest. So that's why Journey Together isn't going to tank, because there's no catalyst to have the bottom fall out of the product. It's a great product. People love it. People want it. And there's not enough margin out there, or not enough product in the hands of irresponsible folks with a high enough margin to mass dump the product to the point where it just saturates demand. So anyway, guys, I hope this was helpful. Don't be a Timmy. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, join the Discord.